I think the number one piece of advice that we can give, no matter where you are in parenting, is that there's not one conversation you have. You have conversations early and often. And so much of our kids' education, whether we like it or not, is occurring online.
Welcome to Parent Compass. I'm Natalie Jones, and we're excited to be here today with Sean Clifford, and he is the CEO of Canopy, which is something you definitely want to hear about because it's going to put a canopy around your children so that they don't get pornography shown to them when they're on the internet in a wonderful, good way that also lets them reach the information that they are trying to reach. So we're excited to hear from him today. Welcome, Sean. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's start with your story. Tell us a little about you.
My name is Sean Clifford. Most importantly, I'm the father of four and the founder and CEO of Canopy. Canopy is a technology company that wants to provide families a way to experience the good of the internet without the bad. We launched about 3 years ago, and the very first product that we have helps kids get in the online world without being exposed to pornography. In order to do that, we're partnering with this amazing Israeli technology company that has developed ways to scan internet traffic in real time, look at every word, every image, every video, and then pull out all the bad stuff, but then still serve up that which is acceptable and appropriate for kids. So that's our first product. This technology has been deployed at scale in Israel. There they protect 2 million devices, 90% of the schools. And we're incredibly excited to bring that to the United States with hopes that we can forge a better way forward on how families adopt technology into their lives.
You know, did you grow up in a strong home or a difficulty there?
I am incredibly blessed. I've got two parents that I love dearly, and they've been absolutely wonderful. They did divorce when I was about 7 years old, but they've been great parents ever since and have provided kind of a strong family foundation. So that's how I grew up. I'm now married. We have our 15-year wedding anniversary this year, and we have 4 kids at home. And in fact, my youngest just turned 3 years old yesterday.
Oh, that's adorable. Have you taken things that you've learned from your childhood and applied them to raising your own kids?
Gosh, such a great question. In some respects, yes. I feel incredibly lucky and blessed by the upbringing that I had. And yet I think one of the challenges that a lot of parents have to contend with is that the playbook that my parents used doesn't apply anymore because so many of the challenges, so many of the activities and interactions that kids have today are just wholly different. When I went to high school, I think my senior year, I had a flip phone, but there was no texting, there was nothing like that. And so parents today have to contend with the average American child gets their own device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone, at age 11. And so that brings a source of entertainment, education, interaction with peers, connection to family, right? So some good things in there, but also some challenges. And I think we all appreciate that technology is incredibly formative in shaping us in powerful ways. And we are trying as parents to figure out what the new playbook will be. And that's in part what Canopy hopes to help parents with.
How did you personally, or have you, either with your own children or was it with other people's children or just thinking that of what's coming in the future, come to this idea that I need to do something here? I mean, obviously if Canopy is only 3 years old, you must have been doing something before. Maybe you switched out?
It's kind of two different origin stories. One origin story is that I was working in Washington, D.C. with a number of large tech companies and a lot of pro-family organizations, and just saw the massive gap between them and the different visions for where the world would be heading. And I thought there would be some negative consequences for the family if that trajectory continued, and that there would be an opportunity to jump in and try and serve families better than what they were being provided. The second was I have a number of friends who have older kids and saw from those families two things. Number one, just the suffering and the pain that attends exposure to pornography. And this manifests itself in impact on marriage and relationships, but then also just kids when they see it. There's a difference between being exposed to a Playboy, which is bad, and I don't condone that, and being exposed to Pornhub today. It is a whole different category, and I think a lot of the old mentalities about how much this can impact kids need to be updated to account for that fact. And so I had a number of friends whose kids had been exposed and they were working through counseling and a lot of issues, but their children were changed in a way that was concerning. So my kids are still young. Back then, my kids, I only had 2 at that time, but the idea was that we've got to change course. We've got to find a way to give parents not only the guidance that I think they are looking for, but then also the tools that can really protect their kids as they venture forth.
In the situations that you saw that were so difficult with these teenagers, et cetera, maybe what did the parents try to do, or maybe this comes to why you developed Canopy. What can you do? What do you recommend in those situations? And maybe that funnels into you explaining Canopy more to us.
Yes, so I think the number one piece of advice that we can give, no matter where you are in parenting, is that there's not one conversation you have. You have conversations early and often. And so much of our kids' education, whether we like it or not, is occurring online. And when they have questions, often innocent questions, age-appropriate questions, they will go online and they will be told things from anonymous strangers that potentially have different objectives in mind. And so ensuring that you can always be, if not the first, among the first places that they turn when they have questions, even if they are uncomfortable, and that you will not be angry or upset with those questions, I think is incredibly important just to establish. Once a child has been out into the world and exposed to this content, I think parents have to recognize that it can impact their imagination, it can set expectations for them. None of this is permanent. Our brains are plastic and we do have a capacity to heal, and that's the good news, but the sooner that you can identify it, put it in its place, by which I mean help parents understand how this emerges in the world. One small fact, 62% of first exposure to pornography is accidental. Oftentimes this is not a child seeking it out, they can just be exposed to it. And then taking the steps to understand that there's something higher, greater, better out there, which is what makes this thing problematic.
What are some of the statistics on what's going on with, pornography, et cetera?
It's a great question. It's tough to know just because asking kids about this, you always need to be careful. But as best we can tell, the average age of exposure to hardcore pornography today in America is somewhere between 9 and 11 years of age. 62% of the time of first exposure is accidental, unintentional. They're not seeking it out. And if this children are exposed early, it is one of the greatest releases of dopamine that exist, which is compelling and brings folks back in. So we're dealing with pornography that is more potent, it's more addictive, and as a result, more harmful. This then is resulting in greater impact on children once they are exposed. So you're starting to see shifts in taste, you're starting to see mental anguish that kind of emerges as kids really struggle. Sometimes it manifests as depression, sometimes they feel isolated and kind of withdraw back. And so it has a number of kind of mental health impacts on kids, vast majority of which are negative. So across the board, you're starting to see that kids, when they're exposed earlier, just having a harder and harder time.
How can we make this a better world? How does Canopy help, the situation that we're going through?
So Canopy is a software tool that you would install on your children's smartphones, tablets, or computers. Once installed, it works in the background and automatically scans all internet traffic, irrespective of what browser they're using. Thanks to this Israeli technology I referenced earlier, we're able to look at every word, every image, and every video on every website that you go to in milliseconds and ensure that we are removing any content that contains pornographic or nude content before it populates on your child's screen. So we think this is a tool that is as dynamic as the internet itself, which is important because every single day there are thousands of new websites being created. Websites that were fine yesterday have problematic content today. And so many of the most popular platforms where kids go, whether it's Reddit or Twitter, as two examples, do contain significant amounts of pornography. So we invented this and brought it to market here with hopes that we could shield kids. And that's an important thing that I want to dwell on for a second. We can create space. We think Canopy is probably the most effective tool out there to prevent exposure to pornography. But at the end of the day, it can only create space, and it does not alleviate parents of the need and really the privilege to still do the parenting work, which is hard, I know. That's so necessary because at some point they will venture off into the world, and you want them to be equipped to, when they come across problematic content, say, that's not for me, and turn away from it.
You got involved 3 years ago, correct? And did you bring it then over here because you saw the success that the Israeli company was having?
Yes, so raised an investment round in 2019, in large part to take the technology and bring it here in a product form that would be suitable and hopefully successful for the American market. And again, we just identified that despite all the engineering prowess of Silicon Valley, and there are many, many notable and exciting accomplishments, they just weren't taking action on this particular issue. And the consequences of that were that millions and millions of American kids were being handed devices, oftentimes for good objectives, right? Education, connecting with family, but in the process then having a portal to some of the most offensive content out there. And so that's really what we wanted to jump in and do, and launched our first product last year. So we're just about a year into being in the US market. Very excited about that, and every couple of weeks, thanks in part to our team in Israel, launching new features and new ways to kind of serve families online.
What are some of the things parents are saying about it?
Parents are saying a number of things. First, they are surprised that it works in the background, right? Oftentimes, this whole notion of parental control or internet filter has a bad rap. It tends to slow down your device. It engages in overblocking, so your kid's constantly coming to you, arguing about this tool. It becomes a point of tension with kids, because if the kid's constantly being frustrated from doing things that aren't problematic, that tends to lead towards friction with a parent. Canopy was designed to be a scalpel instead of a butcher's cleaver. And so kids oftentimes aren't even aware that it's on their device. Now, they're aware it's on there, but it's not interrupting their daily interaction. And so that's one thing. A lot of parents are kind of pleasantly surprised that this is not the clunky tool that they're typically familiar with in the category. So that's one thing. Second thing that I think has been surprising is we've had a number of parents, probably upwards of 20 now, that have come to us and said, I don't even know what Canopy is, where their own children have been the instigator for putting it on their devices. And my takeaway from that is I think that there's a big gap of understanding for what pornography is doing to the generation that's grown up among devices, and how parents still are thinking about maybe how it was maybe 40 years ago. So that's kind of been a surprise for us. We also have a tool or a feature that we've launched that prevents sexting. A growing number of American teenagers are taking nude photos of themselves and then sending it out using their devices. The pre-pandemic statistics that we've seen are 1 out of 4 teenagers has received one, 1 out of 7 has sent one, and 2/3 of American teenage girls have been asked to send a nude photo from someone that they know. So again, these are pre-pandemic figures. The evidence suggests that this has increased during the pandemic. Google searches about how to do this went up 300% during the first few months of the lockdown. And as we regrettably know, digital is forever. So the net effect of this is oftentimes you'll have a young teenager send a photo to a significant other, they break up, and then it gets shared around. And this is heartbreaking for the individual, it's devastating for the family, and we've developed a tool to try and serve as a little bit of a check. In short, our software is able, using artificial intelligence, to scan photos captured by the device. If any of them contain nudity or even minimal clothing, like swimwear, we can issue the user a quick warning saying, hey, are you sure you meant to take that? And if our software was in error, they can say yes, and that photo will be sent to the parent for approval. If it does contain nudity, presumably the child won't send that off to the parent. But if they did, the parent then would have the opportunity to have the conversation with them. So it's unfortunate. I know it sounds crazy that this is a phenomenon, but it's out there, it's real. And we're hopeful that here as well, technology can kind of help as kids are growing up, learn some proper guardrails.
And I think, children are innocent and don't really realize what they're doing and the effect of that choice that they're making, as they just kind of goof around and grow up. How does Canopy prevent tech-savvy kids from uninstalling it?
Absolutely. It's a huge problem. Canopy has actually developed a lot of technology around this whole issue. Company is based out of Texas, so we call this locking the back doors, if you will. So we've got a number of patents that prevent uninstallation of the software without the administrator's approval. So the typical just kind of take an app and delete it or drag your application to the trash will not work with Canopy installed. It took a long time for us to figure that out, but we finally did. The second thing is we've taken a lot of steps to identify how, even if you still have the software on, you can circumvent it. So one example is Google Maps. Google Maps, if you go into Google Maps and you type in a restaurant, it will bring up the website for that restaurant. If you click on that link to the restaurant website, a browser opens up within Google Maps. From there you can browse. And this is a typical way that people will bypass it. From the filters perspective, you're just hanging out in Google Maps and into cartography or whatever have you. So we figured out how to filter within in-app browsers. Many parents aren't even aware that that's a thing, so we tout it and they're like, we're not sure what that is. But we try and identify ways that people typically get around these things to make sure that it's as locked down as possible. The last thing I'll say on this is we have a group of college students that have grown up using other filters and are familiar with the 10 ways that they can get around it. And we give them Canopy and an incentive, a free dinner or whatnot if they can get around it. And thus far, we've not picked up the bill. So, but we're constantly monitoring and trying to make sure that it's as locked down as possible.
Oh, that's a good way to do it. Can you uninstall this? Can you get around this? Glad to hear that they can't. As a parent yourself, why is this technology important to you?
I want my kids to be kids. I've got 4 kids, 10 years old all the way down to 3, so they're still young. And I love it. They, right now, love playing, and we've kind of minimized screen time in our household. And I love the innocence that they have. I love the imagination that's out there when they're being active instead of passive consumers. And I want, as they get older, and I recognize that they will be, I mean, we had school lockdown where they were educated on screens for some time. And I know that the moment will come where they will have their own devices and they'll be doing more time there. But I want that progression to happen in a way where they can be kids. And I want them to have an understanding of a healthy relationship that's formed by their community and their parents. And this is what romance and love should look like, and not some force that's out there that can kind of warp their imagination and set expectations for it. Ultimately, I want them to get married and be happy in marriage. And all of those things are easier if you can keep this stuff at bay, and all of them are harder if they kind of go unencumbered into the world with immediate access to everything and anything on their device, which effectively is what they now have when you have an unprotected device. So I just want my kids to have a real chance at the kind of childhood and courtship and ultimately marriage that I feel incredibly lucky to have with my wife.
How does Canopy allow the users to access the good and not have that blocked out with the bad?
It's a huge distinction that what it contributes to what I think makes Canopy so special. So traditional filters effectively have identified a list of bad websites, and they will block all bad websites. And that worked for kind of the early days of the internet where you kind of had black and white. Regrettably, we now have 50 Shades of Gray, where so many of the most popular websites that kids do access have good and bad mixed in there. So Twitter's a great example where you can get news and sports scores and important information, but also a lot of pornography. Canopy is the only tool that isn't looking purely at domains, but is actually scanning the content within each site as you browse. That gives us the ability to identify if there is just one tweet or one image or one video that's bad and strip it out. And when we strip that out, we still can serve up everything else that's there. So we're hopefully able to provide families a much better choice where it's not all of this site or none of the site, but we can give you the good of this site, confident that pornography is not going to be included within that.
Yeah, that's really important and shocking that you can do that. But I know artificial intelligence is, just amazing, and I'm glad you guys are making that technology work for good in this situation.
We have a lot of gratitude for the dev team in Israel that kind of built this out, and it's taken a number of years, but they've now gotten it to the point where it's about 99.7% accurate in terms of identifying the problematic content, which is the one big advance. But the second is they figured out how to do that in real time, right? No one wants to wait 5 seconds for a page to load while our software runs, which is why the ability to do it in milliseconds, faster than your eye can detect, was a huge breakthrough. So we have a lot of gratitude to them for kind of pulling these advances together. It makes all of what we do possible.
What other features are on the horizon?
We've got some fun things coming out. So right now, our internet filter is really focused on identifying and blocking nudity and pornography, which we think is among the most problematic content out there. We are just about to launch a new feature that will also be able to identify and filter out images with minimal clothing. So lingerie, bikinis, things of that, which regrettably we live in a hypersexualized culture, and that type of content proliferates, especially on some of the visual-based social media channels. And oftentimes, what we now know, thanks to a lot of research, is that those are the on-ramps towards pornography. And so having the opportunity to make sure that we can still serve up totally acceptable content, but without a lot of the kind of provocative content. And there's a slippery slope there, but we're able to really arrest it so that families, again, can make sure that their kids are not really marinating in this hypersexualized, very visual culture. So that's one. The second thing is we've just got a new feature that is rolling out for computers, both Mac and Windows, that will enable us to filter offline content. So imagine that you have a computer with no connection to the internet whatsoever, and some enterprising teenager plugs in a thumb drive that contains problematic content. We are able, thanks to a big advance, to scan what appears on the screen and block content even if they're offline. The second application of that is we can now screen live stream. So let's say you're watching live TV or YouTube Live or Instagram Live or anything like that, and someone who's not wearing clothes shows up on screen. We're able to cut off that feed. So this is something that we think will kind of ensure that the different ways that this type of content can appear on your screen, we're constantly going through trying to identify the ones that still exist and lock them down. Our hope is that we can get to the point that you can give a kid a device completely confident that this is not going to be used to access inappropriate content.
Well, how do parents get Canopy and put it on their technology for their kids?
Thank you so much for asking. They can visit our website, canopy.us. There they can learn more about the specific product that we have, compatibility, also some of the features that we've discussed today. But then lastly, and something that we care very much about, we try to provide guidance and tips for parents that are trying to navigate these issues. One of the things that we've noticed is parents come home on a weekly basis and they know that their kids are using these devices. The average child is now spending upwards of 7 hours a day on a device. Social media, they're spending about 2 hours a day on social media, which is crazy. And I think parents have this deep sense that that's impacting their child, not always in bad ways, right? There can be some good things that come from technology, but they want to figure out how they can raise their kids to be healthy technology users. Ultimately, we hope that Canopy can emerge as both a tool, but then also a source of guidance and wisdom that we've collected from others.
Well, I love what you're doing. It's just so important. I think we get so overwhelmed as parents with what is out there and don't know what to do. And so, the encouragement there to get in the battle and fight the battle, and you can do it in this easy way, and the kids sound like they don't even know it's on there. So beautiful. Hats off to you. Sounds like something parents really need to know about. Really appreciate you fighting for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
When you look around the world today, you're going to notice something. It's broken. Tune into the news or go to social media, and you'll see the chaos that surrounds each one of our lives today. But that was not the original design of God. You see, God's original design was that He would live in perfect union with mankind, that mankind would have a divine purpose, and that purpose would be to know and worship God the Father. But since the very beginning, mankind has run away from God and has been selfish in their pursuits. They didn't want the original design, they wanted their own design. And so mankind ran. The Bible calls that sin. In our brokenness, it's not uncommon to try to get out. We can use drugs or alcohol. We can use relationship. We can even try to be a good person, thinking that that will relieve the tension that we have in our life. But you know what? Trying to get out of brokenness with those methods really only snaps us back into our brokenness again. We needed a remedy, and thankfully, God provided one. He provided Jesus Christ. His Son, who came to earth, lived a perfect life, was buried, and was resurrected again. And as a result of that, He is the only one, because of His perfection and right relationship with the Father, that can offer any person the gift of eternal life with Him in heaven. The Bible says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish, shall not go into brokenness, but shall find divine purpose and have eternal life with Him." Well, let me ask you a question. Are you still in your brokenness? Because if so, there's a way out. It's by repenting and believing in the person of Jesus Christ. Today, would you be willing to admit that you're in your brokenness and you've sinned? Would you be willing to confess that Jesus Christ can be the remedy for your brokenness? And would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to pray to God and say, "God, I need a remedy. Would you fix me?" Because the Bible says that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you should be saved. Saved means that you have your standing with the Father restored, so that you can begin to walk in your divine purpose again. If you've done that, would you do us a favor? Would you go to parentcompass.tv and click on the blue chat button there on the page? Because there's somebody that wants to talk to you about your decision, so that you can begin walking out today your divine purpose with God forever. God bless you.